Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome your co-chairs, Dana Northcott with Amazon.com and Axel Nordman with Baumert & Baumert.
I know. Hi. Hello, everyone. I'm Dana Brown Northcott from Amazon.com here in Seattle.
I'm Axel Nordemann from Baumert & Baumert in Germany. We are your co-chairs for the 2018 annual meeting, and we are thrilled to welcome you to Seattle. It's amazing how much the city has grown and changed since the last time I was here for the 2009 annual meeting, and even more since my first time in 1999.
Seattle is a vibrant community for many brands, from a wide range of industries and products, from retail, tech, aerospace, pharma, travel, finance, shipping, coffee, fishing, and others. But let's have some other locals tell you about it too. Uh-oh. I think we need... Thank you, Salmon, for the warm welcome.
So happy that we didn't have to catch the fish. We would smell a bit.
No. We have a busy week ahead. This week's agenda is designed to get you up to speed on emerging issues, trends, and legislation. We hope you'll have a great week full of opportunities and new ideas. But before we start working, let's get a moment to get everyone situated. The Washington State Convention Center will be our home through Wednesday. Check out the INTA annual meeting app, which has the daily schedule, as well as a new registrant networking feature. Check out the INTA Daily News to get a rundown of the day's events and locations.
We started lunch and learn sessions during the annual meeting in Barcelona last year to add a different dialogue into an IP-focused week. Please consider attending one, or even better, both of these sessions right here in the convention center. On Monday, award-winning Colombian advertising executive Francisco Samper leads a lunch and learn session on changing the world through advertising, guerrillas, soccer, and peace. Soccer, of course I will be there. Tuesday, strategist Erica Dewan will discuss getting big things done, the power of connectional intelligence. Erica is a fantastic speaker, and it's about intelligence, so don't miss her.
We all know that it's the people that really make INTA special, the marquee IP event of the year. We have almost 11,000 registrants, so there are countless opportunities for networking and benchmarking. Put down your phone and make new friends.
And be sure to join us at the 15 INTA-hosted networking receptions, one coming up right after these opening ceremonies.
For this annual meeting, we chose 2 organizations to give back to the local Seattle community. If you can, we would love for you to consider making a contribution. Dress for Success. The mission of Dress for Success is to empower women to achieve economic independence by providing a network of support, professional attire, and the development tools to help women thrive in work and life. Dress for Success will have a booth on the Skybridge on level 4. And the Pike Place Market. The Pike Place Market Foundation provides housing, healthcare, healthy food, childcare, and local community support to those in need.
Putting together a meeting of this size requires a talented team. We would like to recognize the terrific support of our platinum sponsors, Abu Ghazaleh Intellectual Property, AGIP, and Patrick's IP Helpware. Any part of this successful meeting is due to the dedication and the hard work of the full project team. You can see them here. They have developed over 300 educational sessions with over 100 industry speakers, receptions, panels, and networking events. We all started planning this more than 2 years ago. You can see them.
Axel and I also want to extend our deepest thanks and admiration to the project team leaders whose vision and dedication made this meeting possible.
International programming. Max Kinkeldey, former INTA Board of Directors member, adjunct professor and partner at Grünecker in Munich, Germany.
US programming. David Bell, editor of a social media treatise and a chair of the trademark practice group at Haynes & Boone in Dallas, Texas.
Industry breakouts. Pete Becker, one of the most experienced local trademark community leaders in Seattle.
Table topics. Susan Natland, adjunct professor at UCLA School of Law and partner at Kenobi, Martins, Olson & Bear in Irvine, California.
And finally, regional updates. Patsy Lau, former president of the Hong Kong Institute of Trademark Practitioners and partner at Deakins in Hong Kong.
Finally, the annual meeting is about recognizing and celebrating the work that we do. So we'll be wrapping things up and blowing off steam with a block party Wednesday night at the Seattle Center.
It will be an evening of food, drinks, and some really special entertainment, including exclusive access to the Shiholuli Garden and Glass, the Museum of Pop Culture, and the Space Needle. And we will have fantastic weather. There will be no cloud in the sky.
Don't promise.
Don't
Axel.
miss the final party. Don't miss it.
Don't do it. Don't do it. But let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. We're just getting started. Axel and I truly hope that you will enjoy every moment of this week. Thank you.
Have a fantastic annual meeting.
Please welcome the Chief Executive Officer of the International Trademark Association, Etienne Sanz Diacedo.
Hi, Seattle. Welcome to Washington State Convention Center. Back in 2009, we were 7,500 and around 90 attendees. As of today, we are, and I'm pleased to share that with you, 10,910 registrants. And hopefully, by the end of the meeting, we might reach 11,000, which basically means that over the last 3 consecutive years, we've had record attendance. And that means that our industry is in great shape and that we are in great shape as well. So congratulations to all of you. But what is important about this number is that on top of that, we have 2,674 first-time comers to our annual meeting. We have 1,250 corporate members, 175 officials, and almost 150 countries represented here. So we're truly a global organization. And on top of that, this is our contribution to the Seattle area over the next 5 days, over $20 million US. Or we are currently supporting more than 4,760 jobs here in the area. So why Seattle? Is it because it's nice? Because it's friendly? Because it's sunny? Rainy? That's probably more Seattle, by the way. Or is it because it's the seat of the largest software company, aerospace company, e-commerce business, coffee retailer, that I love, by the way, and even, largest private foundation? Well, it's certainly all that, but it's also the fact that Seattle is the seat of 500,000 SMEs, and that's relevant to INTA. Now, let's talk a little about us. Over the last 12 months, we've made almost 100 submissions, recommendations to improve the laws around the world. We've taken around 225 meetings, delegations, and conferences, aside from our own conferences, to meet with officials around the world. And that basically equals to submitting a recommendation every 2.5 days or attending meetings and delegations every 1.1 days. And that's really to protect brand owners and to protect consumers. So let me perhaps share with you what we've been doing around the world. Let's start with Asia Pacific. There, we've been concentrating on counterfeiting matters. We've been advocating against brand restrictions. And back in February, we had our first ever moot court in Asia Pacific. It was in February in Singapore. We had 27 law schools, 23 briefs, 78 students, and we had 8 countries that participated in that first ever moot court. Also, end of last year, we produced our first impact study in Asia Pacific concerning Singapore, Malaysia, Taiwan, Indonesia, and Philippines. That really shows, how far we've gone in being active in that region. And here you have some of the countries where we've been submitting comments and recommendations. In some of them, by the way, it was their first ever trademark regulation that was being put in place, and INTA was participating into that. Now, moving into China, we have supported very actively IPR protection around the One Belt, One Road project. We've produced, organized a full set of workshops related to e-commerce and counterfeiting, and we've also been advocating against bad faith registrations, both outside China, but also in China. And we've, on a permanent basis, interact with Chinese officials. In fact, INTA is the only IP association, foreign association, that is officially registered according to the new foreign NGO regulation in China. And more importantly, at the end of last year, the chief judge from the People's Supreme Court made a reference to INTA in terms of us supporting the advancement of the law in their country. Now, going into India, there we've been very active at recommending enforcement of IP rights. We made a recommendation for amendments to Section 134. We also made recommendations to improve the new trademark rules, and we had the opportunity to meet with the Controller General and make those recommendations. And as important as that, together with the IPP and CPAM, we organized an awareness campaign that reached 8,000 students in more than 100 schools. We had a very successful 2018 presidential delegation, and I'm very pleased to share with you that the board of directors agreed that its 2019 September board will take place in New Delhi. Like we did in Beijing a couple of years ago, we will be taking the entire board to India. Let's move into Africa and the Middle East. There, we've worked into IPR protection, and particularly promoting IPR protection within free trade zones. We've been promoting, of course, accession to international treaties, and particularly the Madrid Protocol. And more importantly, we've contributed to the national IP strategies and to the enhancement of the trademark regulations. Just to give you a few examples, we made comments to the Ethiopian IP strategy. We produced comments to the Kenya draft GI bill, to the Kenyan Trademarks Act, to the Nigerian Trademark Bill, to the South African trademark bill, and to a repos GI strategy. And so that you get an idea of where we've been active, these are the different countries where we had either delegations or meetings or submissions, which clearly shows that now INTA is also very active in that region. Moving a little up, we go to Europe. Fascinating times in Europe. A lot is going on. Not all good, but a lot is going on. So here we talk, of course, about Brexit. We talk about GDPR. We talk about trademark agreements and trade agreements. And of course, we talk about promoting IP among SMEs. In terms of Brexit, we want to make sure that IP is part of the discussions, is part of the negotiations. And in fact, we attended a meeting with the Minister of IP in the UK to talk about those issues. In terms of GDPR that is entering into force in a few days, those of you who are in the Internet Committee know that extremely well. That has a huge impact on the WHOIS mechanism, and it has a huge impact for brand owners, and we absolutely need to follow that issue. What we also do in Europe is that we provide comments to the European Commission on the trade agreements they're negotiating. But when we do that, we don't do it just from a European perspective. We truly do that from a global perspective. And we make sure that our different rep offices do participate in that process, do feed into that process, so that we give a global perspective. And last but not least, there are plenty of SMEs in Europe. They're probably not enough aware of IP, and this is one of the commitments of the association. Now, let's cross the Atlantic. Let's go into Latin America. There, we continue working to promote international harmonization, be it accession to international treaties like the Madrid Protocol, or simply harmonization of procedures. We're also extremely active in the field of brand restrictions, and we've been producing quite a few trainings for examiners in Guatemala, Paraguay, Argentina. We've done that with judges, particularly at the Andean community and Ecuador. We had 90 judges participating in that training, and also with customs. And we recently had 70 customs officials in Chile and Panama. We also had last year our first ever standalone INTA conference in Latin America, in Cartagena de Indias. And very recently, we had the third workshop of Latin American IP offices on counterfeiting and enforcement. We had 15 offices participating. We had 6 heads of offices that were there, and we jointly signed a kind of white paper with them in terms of how should those offices play a role in counterfeiting and enforcement. And again, you can see here, not all the countries, but certainly those where we've been mostly active. We recently were approached by the Inter-American Development Bank that wanted to get INTA views on IPR in Latin America. And also very recently, we were asked by the Chilean government to participate in their National Safety Council, as well as Argentina, who asked us to be part of their national desk against illicit trade. Finally, we get to North America. And here, we've been very active in Canada, looking at the new Trademarks Act. We've been very active as well at engaging with Canadian officials on the issue of counterfeiting, and we would expect them to pay more attention to this issue. In the US, we're extremely proud, happy, and thankful for the work of the US Trademark Caucus. When we started, we had 4 members. Now we have more than 30 members. And last year, we had 5 briefings, and we also organized a set of in-district workshops. In addition to that, and as a consequence of that, of course, we're looking as well, and we're kind of, expressing our concerns about a potential recodification of the Lanham Act. And we're also looking at the Sure Services project, and we're expressing our concerns as IP industry. And also in the US, together with the USPTO and the National Inventors Hall of Fame, we have now a trademarks exhibition at the PTO that has received more than 15,000 visitors over the last 12 months. And if you allow me, talking about the US, I would here like to recognize the work of the PAC and the PAC board, because that's extremely important to make the changes we need as well here. So we've certainly done a lot of things, but there are still a lot of challenges in front of us. And I would like to just refer to, that went too quickly. That's one of my problems. I tend to go too quickly, so sorry about that. These are some of our main challenges, as we know. Further harmonization, for sure, stronger enforcement, anti-counterfeiting, GDPR, brand restrictions, Brexit. And in addition to that, we should never forget that this is not just about brand owners, it's also about consumers. So consumer protection, promoting IP among SMEs and entrepreneurs, innovation, change, how is that going to be impacting us? And last but not least, the value of brands. So let's go back to Seattle. I do hope that you're going to be enjoying this annual meeting. But before I leave, let me share with you what are going to be our next venues for TMAP, for leadership meeting, Orlando, New Orleans. I also would like to share with you our Asia Pacific conference that will take place in Sydney in October. And let me take this opportunity as well to announce the dates for the 2019 annual meeting in Boston, and also confirm what many of you already heard about, which is the fact that in 2020, we'll be going back to Asia, and that's going to be in Singapore, April 25 to 29. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the President of the International Trademark Association, Tish Berard, with Hearts on Fire Company, LLC.
Hello, Seattle. I bet that's not what you expected from the INTA president. Isn't it fun when our preconceived notions deceive us? It's a wonderful surprise. It reminds us that sometimes what we see is very different from what we think we will see. When I joined INTA in 1999 as a newcomer to the profession and to the association, I never saw myself as the INTA president. Thankfully, as I became more seasoned and more engaged, I was able to change the way that I saw myself. And this year, I am fortunate to serve as your president. It's a tremendous honor. It's also a huge responsibility to represent the association on your behalf. And this is probably, no doubt, closer to what you were expecting when I was welcomed onto the stage. But I hope that I have shown you that we are all multidimensional. For example, I can be a brand professional, the INTA president, and a very cool rocker chick. And for all of you, you may now see me differently, and I think that is a good thing. Today, I want to share with you how we can all benefit by seeing things differently. I want to show you how we, as brand professionals, can benefit from choosing to see things differently, and how in doing so, we can be more effective in our work and bring greater value to our companies, our brands, our communities, and to the billions of consumers around the world. So, Michael Michalko is one of the world's most acclaimed creativity experts. Appearances can be deceiving, and how we perceive things can alter them in dramatic ways. Mr. Michalko points out that we tend to think of perception as a passive process. that through our senses, we're simply recording the world around us. He argues that perception is instead an active process, that we are actually constructing rather than recording reality. And how we see the world is based on choices we make, on how we choose to construct our reality. And he offers a wonderful analogy to this point. So I want all of you to close your eyes and picture a bumblebee. And I want you to picture what the bee is doing. You got your image? So some of you may be thinking about a bee stinging someone, maybe even you. So you think the object of the bee is to sting. And some of you may be thinking of a bee sipping honey from the flower, and therefore the object of the bee is to sip the nectar. Some of you may believe that the object of the bee is to produce honey so we can enjoy our tea. And I see some UK people out there kind of nodding as that happens. If you're more of a naturalist, you may imagine the object of the bee is to make honey, to feed the younger bees, to support the hive, to protect the queen, and to perpetuate life. And if you're a gardener, you actually might believe that the object of the bee is to pollinate flowers and support plant life. And in reality, the bee is all of these things, not just that one image you have in your head. So here's the point of that exercise. Perception depends upon our own assumptions and experiences. It's all a matter of perspective. So indeed, we should always be questioning how we view the world. What do you see in the picture? Do you see a frog? Or do you see a horse? I don't know. Nobody can see either, right? No. Come on, you can at least see the frog, right? Okay. For us here today, we need to think about how we, as brand professionals, perceive trademarks and intellectual property, and ask ourselves what can be gained from a fresh perspective. Likewise, we need to think about how consumers perceive trademarks and IP, and ask ourselves what can be gained if they are able to see these things differently. I believe that doing so presents a tremendous opportunity for us, that much is to be gained if we collectively choose to change our perception and work to change the perception of others. All right, one final exercise. So here's a piece of paper. Whatever is she going to do with the paper? Let's find out. I'm going to show you a different way of looking at this piece of paper. It's a butterfly. And yes, if I see you out at the reception tonight, I would be happy to make one for you. And no, I don't know how to make anything other than a butterfly. But why did I make a butterfly? Well, as I hope I've demonstrated today, changing our perception is not really that difficult. And changing the perception of others should not be thought to be a major endeavor. Even a small pebble dropped into the middle of a lake will bring ripples to the shore. Okay, so now let's get back to my friend the butterfly. It was famed mathematician, MIT mathematician and meteorologist Edward Lorenz who conceived of chaos theory and what we know as the butterfly effect. As the theory goes, a small change in one place can lead to major changes in another place. So for example, if a butterfly flaps its wing in the jungle in Costa Rica, that slight wind pressure creates a ripple effect in the atmosphere and actually causes a storm in the Arizona desert. Now, of course, butterflies don't really cause storms or else the world would be in chaos. But that's not really what the butterfly effect is about. It's about how tiny changes in big, unpredictable systems can have complex results. These systems could be anything from weather patterns to busy street traffic. So let's take a look at street traffic. Imagine a car is suddenly braking in heavy traffic. This forces the car behind to brake just a little harder. The next car brakes just a little harder. You see where I'm going with this. The butterfly effect of that first car braking is now a full-scale traffic jam. And this happens all the time, especially if you live in Boston like I do. And this is why new technologies are continuously being developed to ease congestion on the roads and maintain the flow of traffic. It brings order to the chaos. Similarly, all of us take steps every day to bring order to the chaos around us. And there are always more changes that we want to make in our lives if only we had the time and the resources. So here's where the butterfly effect can come into play. By focusing on doing very small tasks each day, we can experience very big changes as time passes. For example, if you were to wake up 30 minutes earlier, and try exercising, after a few weeks, you're going to feel better. And in time, you're going to see positive effects in your self-confidence, in your career, in your relationship. Very small change with very big results. INTA is comprised of some 31,000 brand professionals across 191 countries. We are an incredibly diverse and intellectually wealthy community with huge potential. Think about what we can accomplish, how we can bring about major changes to our industry, our brands, and to the global economy, and to consumers everywhere if we all choose to take action to make small changes. So what does this mean for us? I believe that we have within our grasp the potential to affect the changes that we would like to see in our industry. However, I also believe that we will be far more effective in bringing about these changes if we choose to see things differently. This is how we can have a positive butterfly effect. We operate in an increasingly connected, increasingly complex, and indeed increasingly chaotic and disruptive global economy. And just as traffic lights bring order to roads, trademarks and brands bring order to the marketplace. Trademarks are indicators of origin and the quality of goods and services. They provide protection for the companies and for the consumers. They also constitute the anchor of brands. Consumers are able to rely on trademarks to make quick, confident, and safe purchasing decisions, and they place their trust in the brands to deliver on their promises. At the same time, we've seen over the years a fundamental shift in the source of value creation within businesses, from their tangible assets to their intangible assets, their intellectual property. A consequence of that is an increase in brand value. And brand value is the amount of money that one party is prepared to pay for the trademark, for the branded product or service, or perhaps the entire branded business. And that brand business includes all value-adding activities, such as the intangible assets, the channel relationships, the superior management, the creative talent, etc. Over the last few decades, IP has emerged as the leading asset class in the stock markets. In other words, more than ever, trademarks and brands are critical to a business and its bottom line. On the other hand, brands have a different value when viewed from the perspective of the consumer, and this is brand equity. It originates from customers and indicates the customer side of value toward a brand. And while brand value is on the rise, brand equity is under threat. Why? Because the critical role of trademarks as sources of information and brands as promises of delivery are being diminished in the marketplace. This is happening because the role of trademarks, IP, and brands in society is by and large misunderstood. And this is negatively impacting brand reputation and fueling anti-IP sentiment. Increasingly, IP is viewed by the public at large as a means for companies to unfairly inflate their shareholders' wealth at the expense of consumers who buy their products and the communities in which they operate. INTA is responding to these changes in our companies, in the marketplace, and in the global economy. As an association, we are beginning to see things differently. We're taking a fresh perspective. We're finding innovative ways that we, as a community, can address these challenges. So I would like to now offer 3 actions that we can take, and indeed that INTA is actively pursuing on our behalf in its new strategic plan, that will enable us to be more effective in our work and bring greater value to our companies, our brands, our communities, and to consumers everywhere. However, let me stress that for us to be effective in taking these actions, they require us to see things differently. So first, and perhaps most fundamentally, we need to view our profession differently. For some time now, you may have noticed that INTA has been referring to us as brand professionals rather than trademark practitioners. This is intentional. The world around us is evolving. Brands are evolving. How consumers interact with our brands has certainly evolved, and the role of the trademark practitioner has also evolved. Yes, as trademark practitioners, we must protect our marks, but we also can and should contribute to the creative success of our brands. As brand professionals, we need to be thinking holistically about our brands. Brands determine the people companies recruit, the products and services they put in the market, the messages that they convey to their customers, and the channels that they use. At the same time, as I've noted, as our company's asset portfolios shift from tangible to intangible assets, IP becomes increasingly important for the bottom line. It's therefore also important for us to understand the economic value of brands. Our colleagues around the board table don't talk about trademarks, they talk about brands. And they're focused on the return on investment that those brands bring to the company and to its shareholders. So we need to speak the same language and show how much value we bring to the companies and to our clients. We are not a cost. We are not an expenditure. We are a crucial part of the revenue stream. It's up to us to bring this message back to our companies and to our clients. In order to take a holistic approach to brands and be more involved in our brands, we need to understand and advance the value of brands, as well as their potential as communication, marketing, and financial assets. And importantly, we need to demonstrate how our work impacts brand value. This is how, as brand professionals, we can be better business partners. And while INTA will work over the next few years to develop and provide us with tools and resources to be more effective in this endeavor, I'm going to ask of you two things. First, make a conscious decision now to see your role within your organization as fundamentally different. See yourselves as brand professionals. Second, realize that you're part of a global community of brand professionals, and that if we all choose to approach our jobs differently, we can bring about significant changes within our industry and in the global economy. Indeed, as 31,000 butterflies all flap our wings at the same time, we can bring about tremendous change. In a recent media interview that I did, the journalist noted that brand reputation is increasingly important in the digital age and asked if Trademark Council should now assume that their cease and desist letters will be published online. No doubt the spread of the internet and the rise of social media has created new challenges in terms of trademark protection. It is also clear that the role of trademarks, IP, and brands in society is by and large misunderstood. And that's what's fueling this anti-IP sentiment and impacting brand reputation. At the end of the day, brands are vessels of trust, and this trust is eroding. So this is my second call to action. We need to demystify IP and help consumers to see trademarks and brands differently. This is about reminding consumers that they can rely on and place trust in brands, and that trademarks provide the foundation upon which that trust is placed. At its most basic, the issue that we as the global trademark community face today is a loss of trust among those who buy our company's products and services. Nearly 7 out of 10 respondents to Edelman's 2018 Global Trust and Credibility Survey said that building trust is #1 job for the businesses ahead of delivering high-quality products and services. And in the 2015 Nielsen Global Corporate Sustainability Report, brand trust topped the list of factors that influence purchasing decisions among consumers globally. This trend toward brand trust is higher among the younger generations, the consumers of tomorrow. These younger consumers, much more than their predecessors, are aligning their purchases with their personal beliefs. The 2017 Edelman Earned Brand Study shows that the majority of millennials and over half of Generation Z consumers, those born from the mid-1990s to about the early 2000s, are belief-driven shoppers. Consumers today are not only seeking out companies that demonstrate corporate social responsibility, they're willing to pay more for their products and for their services. According to a recent report from market research firm Millward Brown, brands that build positive customer sentiment increase their brand equity and are 4 times more likely to grow their value share than those that don't. So clearly the stakes are very high. Demystifying IP and helping consumers to see trademarks and brands differently is about building trust and demonstrating that brands serve the interests of not only brand owners, but of consumers and of society at large. We need to communicate the contribution of brands to economies and to society and promote the positive side of IP, such as its contribution to GDP, to employment, and to social welfare. And we need to remind consumers that trademarks facilitate trust in the marketplace and enable quick, confident, and safe purchasing decisions. In doing so, we can reinforce trademarks as sources of information and brands as promises of delivery. So to this end, I'm going to ask you for 2 things. First, remember that without consumers, there would be no brands. They are the end user. They are the clients, and how they see trademarks and IP dramatically impacts their willingness to place their trust in our brands. Second, remember that while there are literally billions of consumers worldwide, we are an incredibly diverse and intellectually wealthy community, and we too have a global presence. Indeed, as, where am I going? Butterflies. 31,000 butterflies all flapping our wings to the same tune, we can bring about tremendous change. Innovation and change affects all of us. It affects our lives as individuals, it affects our companies, it affects our brands, and it affects consumers everywhere. So no doubt there's a clear relationship between brands and innovation. Brands drive innovation, and at the same time, it's critical that brands remain innovative in order to evolve, to thrive, and maintain relevance in the marketplace. Consumers also drive innovation. They have become accustomed to quickly embracing new technologies that are changing the way industries work and the way products and services are consumed. Innovation is also accelerating change in the marketplace and in society. So we hear a lot about this disruptive effect of innovation, and the tendency is to resist change. And of course, there are 2 ways of seeing innovation and change. The glass is half full, or the glass is half empty. Yes, there is a disruptive effect, but there's also an opportunity. So let's choose to see the glass as half full. By choosing to embrace rather than resist innovation and change, we're going to be more successful. And in doing so, we will find and create ways for us to take advantage of the opportunities and overcome the challenges brought about by innovation and change. In other words, we will become drivers of change rather than products of it. While we continue in our roles as trademark practitioners, we too are now poised to come out of our cocoons as brand professionals and affect the change that we want to see in our industry. But to be effective in our roles as brand professionals, we must choose to see things differently. By seeing our profession differently, we can become better business partners. By helping consumers to see trademarks and brands differently, we can reinforce consumer trust. And by embracing innovation, by seeing the glass as half full, we can affect the change we wish to see in the world. In doing so, we will be more effective in our work and bring greater value to our companies, our brands, our community, and to the billions of consumers around the world. We can all affect change. Now, I began this presentation by telling you that when I joined INTA almost 2 decades ago, I never imagined that I would one day be INTA president. But I was able to change the way that I saw myself. This fueled my ambition and gave me the motivation to pursue my professional goals. In the same vein, I call on all of you to think about how you view yourselves. We can all be and achieve so much more than we think we can. We can all be butterflies. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you very much, Dana. It was fantastic.
Thank you, everyone,
Thank you.
for coming and joining us.
And please join us now for the welcome reception, which will take place one floor further down on 4th floor below this room. Enjoy the conference. Have a fantastic time here in Seattle. And thank you for joining us to these opening ceremonies.
Thank you.